morning.
Good afternoon, good evening.
Yeah, wherever you're at. Welcome back to our channel. We wanted to share with you what's been going on lately.
Yeah, so today is Friday, November 5th. And it has been quite the past few days since an exciting weekend. Starting last Sunday, October 31st.
Yeah.
Most people know that there is Halloween activities, treat or trick. We stopped celebrating that years, many moons ago.
Yeah.
Don't partake, but nonetheless, we did get a scare.
That's right. So the day started out normal. I have I guess you could say, a 2-level parking area that I wanted to connect with some stairs, and I was going to make it out of big boulders. And so I went ahead and started, forming it out, bringing in soil, bringing in the big old stones that we were using. And I think I probably got maybe halfway done.
A little more than half.
A little more, yeah. And by this time, it was probably like around, let's say 4 o'clock. 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And I felt kind of, there was this pain in my chest. And I thought I overdid myself because, these are big stones. And so I said, okay, well, maybe I could just walk it off, whatever it is, pulled muscle, whatever it is. So I said, okay, well, again, maybe I just drink some water, it'll go away. But I drank water, it didn't go away. I took deep breaths. Everything was fine. Like I said, okay, well, that usually, because you have when you pull muscle, there's a strain as you stretch your chest out and bring it in. But I didn't feel nothing like that. It was just this kind of crushing pain right in the lower. Have you ever had your wind knocked out of you and you get that kind of quick pain? That's kind of what it felt like. But I could breathe. So that's kind of what I can describe it as. But it was a little more intense than that. So I said, okay, well, after I came back from drinking water, I brought more boulders because, I was still working or wanted to finish it. And my wife comes out and, we start talking. And as I've keep going, I noticed the pain not going away. And we'll show there the video.
Did a little compilation, not the whole thing, because he went on for a few hours, but just in pieces
Snippets.
of, what kind of like our camera kind of captured, the one that we have facing the garage, or the driveway rather. And, from when he first started to where you could feel that there's discomfort. Now, at this point, he didn't express to me that he was having pain, but now watching the video, I could see where he was kind of, holding on to his chest, trying to stretch. So you'll probably pick that up. But I wanted to say something before he goes on, that when we kind of get task oriented, we tend to do that, to kind of like just want to finish that. And I was doing deep cleaning inside and he was working outside. And just like, you might have seen our interactions, and we're pretty much together all the time. But I kind of get on a funk when I'm cleaning, and he kind of knows that. So, he went to work outside. I was here. I was a little frustrated, just, chores and just having a lot of things to do. The day before, I had taken on more tasks. Just me wanting to do things, taking care of bathing the dog. Anyways, it was just a lot of things, and just felt very tired. And I'm like, the day of all days that he didn't have good breakfast, he decides to take on a task. So I was actually upset that he was out there taking on something that we had talked about, something we wanted to do, but it wasn't a priority. And I'm like, could have been inside helping me. So I was frustrated and I was upset at him. And looking back, such a regret of just my attitude wasn't the best. And because I am imperfect and still working on myself, he sensed that, you know, I was upset. So he wasn't necessarily being very forward telling me I don't feel good. You know, we lean on each other to baby each other. Most parts he baby me. And I mean, for the most part, he's healthy, active, you know, he carries himself pretty good to where like there's no reason why, you know, he
Anything
wouldn't,
should
yeah, anything would seem out of the norm. Now, just putting that on hold, there is a history of heart disease in his side of the family, and unfortunately both of us have not been, we know very well about this thing. His mom passed away when she was 45. He currently is 45. His uncles have all passed from,
a number of them.
yeah, four of the uncles, three or four uncles from heart attacks.
My grandma.
Both of the grandmas, mom and dad, with complications, diabetes, and heart problems. My dad had a massive heart attack in 2013, and he was in a coma for about a week. He was in the hospital for 17 days. So that thought that it could be, there's no way. Like, no.
Mm-hmm.
And anyways.
So when she comes out and talks to me, and as you can see on the video, you know, I start, you know, kind of like grabbing my chest, you know, squeezing myself, you know, give myself a hug, like saying, you know, come on now. So I start putting, I don't know if you can see it. No, if I don't know if you can see it or not, but I laid down on the driveway trying to stretch out my chest. You know, maybe it was a pulled muscle, and it still didn't go away. So I kind of put everything away, came inside,
The sweats too.
and I noticed that I know it's TMI, but sweatier than normal.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, you know, okay, I'm gonna go take a shower, and I'll come out. And she said, you know what, I'm going to make you something to eat, because we also thought that maybe, you know, I just needed something to eat. So I go in, take a shower. It was the most uncomfortable shower ever, because it's just the pain there, and you know, you're trying to move around and everything, and the pain just doesn't go away. So I get out of the shower, I come downstairs, to the living room, and I take maybe like 2 bites of food, and the pain's still there. I mean, you know, you're not going to get instant relief, but it's just that discomfort. And by this time, I'm gonna say it probably was like 6 o'clock.
Mm-hmm. Probably.
Yeah, and so we, you know, I kind of put the food to the side, drink some more water, and I figured, you know what, maybe I need to walk a little more. Maybe there's an air bubble or something that I need to get out, you know? Maybe that's what it is. So I started walking a little bit. I walked back and forth a couple of times, up and down stairs, you know, until finally, you know, well, before that, you know, my wife did say, do you want to go to the ER? And I'm like, no, I got something, maybe I just swallowed wrong. I got water down the wrong pipe. You know, it was just kind of, I'm like, no, I don't need to. But by the third time she asked me, the pain wasn't going away. I said, finally, you know what? Yeah, let's go, because it's not going away. But in my mind, I'm thinking, this has to be, I'm already upset with myself, because I'm like, why am I going to go to ER? They're going to tell me, oh, you just swallowed something wrong, or you got an air bubble. Why am I just going to go waste time over there? And another reason why I didn't want to go is because I don't have no insurance, health insurance. Because I know it's going to be a lot of money that we currently don't have. But I said, you know what? Let's just go ahead and go. So we get in the car.
So hold on. Before this, when I was outside interacting with him, just as he's trying to finish it up, and he's still trying to decide how wide he wants to make it, how far whether he has the material. So it's a lot of, you know, brainstorming. And so at some point that he's doing some of that, and I'm out there, he is leaning, moving rocks and leaning back, and one of them he's like, whoa. So kind of like he got a little lightheaded, and it's again very active, and I've seen him push himself like that before, so it's not unusual. And in the past, both and I have been able to identify whether we're dehydrated. Yeah, we didn't eat enough, or but sometimes the task is there and we just has to get done, so you kind of just push through it. And again, I was upset, and I'm like, the day of, you didn't eat, it's your fault. I'm thinking it's your fault because, you're lightheaded and, you're sweaty, blah, blah, blah. So I'm going to go make something to eat. So at all this, he's mentioned that it was a very uncomfortable shower. He has not told me yet that his chest is hurting. But, later he tells me, well, you can tell you're upset. So he's like, I was trying not to just make, more inconvenience. And
I want to squeeze in real quick. Guys, have you ever noticed when your significant other or your girlfriend, fiance, whoever it is, they have that face that you just don't want to say anything, that you're like, if I say it, it's just going to go crazy. Well, that's kind of how I felt, because I did notice that she was mad, and I'm like, okay, well, I don't want to say anything that's going to add more to getting mad. And but that's one thing that we look back and stuff that we're working on to fully communicate to each other, especially with things like this. If something hurts, let the other person know. And it doesn't have to be something severe. It could be something simple. I jam my finger, because once you jam your finger, it's gonna hurt for a couple of days. And then when go to hold hands, and then squeezes your hand, you're like, whoa. She's like, whoa, how come you didn't tell me? Then you get mad again. So it's better to be upfront and talk to each other and communicate, get that clear communication going.
And by all means, I think we have a pretty good communication, but I think I'm probably going to say that lately we're at a point that we think we've communicated everything we need to communicate, and that we can read each other enough that there are times that later when we come and talk about it, we're like, well, that's not what I meant, or that's not what I was thinking, or that's not how I thought you meant it. So the communication is still ongoing, and we realize and we recognize that. For me, like I said, I'm still a work in progress. I've mentioned before, having gone through the details, or in detail rather, about sharing about my disability, but I am disabled, so I rely on him a lot. He does a lot of things for me, and with me, and so having him as my provider and just being active, and a lot of times he's the one taking care of me, protecting me, like, don't do this, please don't do that, I don't want you to get hurt. So at times it's like, I want to do it, let me at least try it. And then so there's that part of me that is so stubborn, that like, I know I have a disability, but I want to feel like I'm still able. And then so a lot of times, that brings a conflict within myself that it kind of externalizes to. But anyways, just again, him being my provider, it was kind of odd, or just didn't even see how he could possibly need the help. And so when he was starting to share the discomfort he had, and I'm thinking, well, it's because you didn't eat, it's because you were picking up big rocks, big boulders, which he was, is because, so I'm kind of thinking in my head, it's your fault that you're feeling this way. And so he said that by the third time I asked him, but I actually asked him 3 times and he said no. And I'm just trying to think it's nothing more. Give him about 3, what are they called? Ibuprofens for pain. And I am Googling at the same time, because I remember my dad and the chest pain. And he's more, actually, when it comes to like hurting his toes, is the only time he'll complain about. Anything else, his fingers could be purple. And I'm like, what happened? He's like, I don't know. He just has a lot of pain tolerance. Okay, it's weird because he can hurt himself like really hard, and he could be like he has a paper cut or like a thorn, and those are the things he'll complain about. Then the bigger stuff. So for him to complain, it was unusual, but I was thinking again, it's your fault. And So he said no all the times, and I'm just trying not to think of it, but I'm Googling it, and saying, is there should be pain radiating on your left arm, your chest, your neck, your jaw.
Mm-hmm.
And I do remember some of those things from my dad. And I asked him, he's like, I can take deep, full breath. It's not a problem. My left arm doesn't hurt. He's like, my right arm hurts a little bit, but he said, but I was lifting up big rocks. So everything kind of made sense, the discomfort. So I was looking, and it said that it could have been maybe a muscle micro tear. And when I read it to him, he's like, kind of makes sense. But who are we to say that, that's actually it?
Yeah.
And then by the time, actually I just found a text, it was 6:29 when I texted our son saying, okay, that doesn't feel well, because he said, okay, he's like, I'm sorry, we're gonna have to go to the ER. Yeah. And I texted our son, say, okay, that is having chest pain, we're going to the ER. They're like, oh no. And so when I filled out the paper at the hospital, I think it was 6:50 something, it's just down the street. By the time we got ready, because we were basically on lounge clothes, just like,
we're ready to go to bed.
Yeah, we were.
Go to bed.
And I filled out the paperwork, and on the description as what is the reason that you're here, just put in big letters, chest pain, dizziness. Because by then, right before he said, I'm ready to go, he started getting kind of like shivers. He started getting cold, but the temperature also dropped. We have a little tower heater in the living room, and turn it on, and eventually you said that started bothering you too.
Yeah, just the air just started bothering me. I mean, the heat felt good, but it just wasn't. You just get agitated because you have the discomfort, and it's just everything just starts bugging you. So then we're already at the ER. We go to the ER. We're at the ER. I go in, where they call me back.
And when you go with chest pains, immediately, I don't even think he was in the lobby, not even 5 minutes, because I had just gone to the ER maybe a month prior, and we sat there for about an hour and a half before I went in. But I thank God that that's a procedure that they have, that when it comes to chest pain, they don't mess around. Right, they get you in right away.
Yeah. So I get taken back, get on a bed. Excuse me. And they put on, all the sensors for your chest and EKG. And the gentleman that was doing the test, they ask you, where does it hurt? What is the scale of it? From 0 to 10, what's the pain level? And I'm like, I've never felt this much pain. It's like a 10 right now. It hurts bad. And, I'm just trying to move and see if I can still make it go away. They're over here putting all these sensors on, and my poor chest has got marks on it, but because they shaved the poor guy, and it's not a pretty sight right now. But so they go through, and the gentleman that was doing the test, as soon as he's done doing the test, he just kind of gets the paper, gives it to the nurse, and then the nurse gives it to the doctor who's there. And right away she comes in asking, do you have a history, or do you have a family history of heart problems? And I said, yes. My mom passed away of a heart attack. My grandma passed away of a heart attack. My uncles passed away of a heart attack. She looked at me and she says, you're having a heart attack. Oh, that feeling of like disbelief. And I'm like, no, you're, in my mind, I'm fighting with her, saying, you're wrong, it can't be. But at the same time, I'm scared. I'm like, my mom passed away at the same age. I go, I don't want that to happen. I feel fine. I feel fine. It's just that pain. Just make that pain go away. So they were giving me patches of a pain reliever that it would help with the pain. And I think they ended up giving me 2 of those. So when she says that, when she gives me that news, I get upset. My blood pressure goes sky high. I'm over there getting all teary-eyed. And I'm trying to make sense of everything. And they're, when you try to hold back tears or crying out loud, you cough, like, they right away think it's,
Simulate.
They think it's like a COVID or something like that. But it wasn't that. They tested me and we got the shots and stuff like that. But I'm not saying we can't get it. But I'm just, anyways, that's another different story. But I get tested. It's all negative.
And you explained to them that it was that you were holding
I
your
explained
juice.
to them, that I go, the coughing isn't because I'm sick. The coughing is because I was trying to hold it back. Just bursting out in tears and crying out loud. And I go, I told him, I go, you have to understand that I'm just scared. And I feel fine. It's just that pain. Can you just make that pain go
It's
away?
just the pain.
Yeah, just one small thing can make your whole world go crazy. But so as they're telling me this and asking me these questions, is it radiating anywhere? Same thing that my wife was asking me, does your jaw hurt? Does your neck hurt? You got a stiff neck? Is it going to any of your arms, to your legs? I'm like, no, it's just staying right here. So at the same time they're doing that, I think one of the nurses or someone else called the paramedic, because they have a paramedic or an ambulance, there, and they're already prepping me to ship me out. But before that, they had to call a hospital and see if they would accept you, because obviously no insurance. But if you're a medical personnel, if you're a doctor, I mean, we kind of know how it works. I'm not saying we know all that works, but usually if there's no money involved, or you take a long time to get to where you need to go.
But one of the things that I wanted to mention was that, for one, like you mentioned, and no insurance. It was one of the first things when we went through the admission. Do you have insurance? No. He said, well, we haven't hit it. I'm pretty healthy other than this today. So at this point, I'm trying to communicate with my boys. Okay, they just got him in already. He's inside. And the next person was his brother, because he's a nurse, and sister. So I'm like, okay, just heads up. And meanwhile, I'm texting that, just to let you know we're at the ER. I see one of the nurses by like speed walking, going to the front lobby. Now, mind that we're in a very small town. This hospital is small. I don't even think they have the ER. Well, the whole hospital is small, but the ER is tiny. I don't even know how many beds they have, but it's not enough. And I even considered driving. I'm like, should I go all the way to the next town over where there's a bigger hospital? But I'm like, no, I'll just go here, because if it's nothing, it's a bill, and we're already local, and hopefully we can just work something out. And then so I see that nurse fast walking, mumble something. I couldn't make it out because I was in the middle of a text. And then so I continue. I'm like, okay, what was that? Was it him? Someone else? I mean, obviously I know there are more patients there. And then so I guess as I'm finishing my text, that lady that's in the front didn't quite get what was going on or needed a clarification. So she walks out, and all I hear is Mario like, excuse me, what's going on? It's he gonna get transferred? It made sense because it's a small hospital. She's like, yeah. And obviously I think at that point they knew they needed to let me know. So as she's finishing that, I'm finishing the text. I'm like, he's getting transferred, trying to finish that and starting one with my boys. And then the nurse comes out. They're like, okay, so we verified that he's having a heart attack. And I think when it comes to that, and I'm emotional about it thinking in retrospect now, but because I've been in enough dramatic situations, I kind of kick into a different mode of like, get this done. Yeah, it's different in a survival mode type of thing. So kind of like emotions don't have a chance right now. It's just not the place for it. So I get moving the back. A whole bunch of people working around him. He sees me, and at this point, he can't hold it anymore. And they're telling him, they're trying to communicate. He's having a heart attack, and it just seems so fast at the same time. Because I'm trying to comfort him. I'm trying to say it's okay, and then he's getting upset. The doctor is telling me that he's having a heart attack, but that he's fine. That they've already contacted another hospital. Because when they came out, they said, we're going to transfer him to see HI Memorial. And I'm Googling it where I go, because they're going to send him on an ambulance. I'm like, I need to get ahead because can I ride with him? They're like, I don't think so, not with COVID thing. And I'm like, okay, so we need to get ahead because the ambulance is just going to zoom. And then I don't want to be there after. I want to be there before. And then so they let me go see him. all these nurses. Somehow I lost the hospital in my phone. I'm looking it up to tell my son, and I can't find it. I'm like, okay, which is the hospital you told me? And they're like, okay, they've already accepted him. We already talked to them. He's actually not gonna go to the ER. He's gonna go straight to the cath lab. So I know that all of this is just talking serious, because now he's even skipping another ER. He's just going straight to basically an operating room. And so finally I go and I talk to him, and he's getting upset, and I'm trying to calm him down. I'm mad at him still. I'm like, no, you're not allowed to leave me. Like, you need to get better. Like, I need you. And any word that I would say, it was just a trigger to him. And I'm like, your vitals are just getting, I'm like, calm down. And
so instead of comfort me, she's over there yelling at me, don't leave me. And I'm like, I'm not planning on it, but this thing it's all wrong. You know, in my mind, I'm thinking it's all wrong. I'm like, no, I didn't plan this, you know, but life happens. And so.
And then there was this nurse, you know, small town, small hospital. She was there when I was in the ER just about a month prior. And I'm like, hey, you saw me before, because we ended up having things in common. Our kids ended up going to the same academy, Christian boarding school. And so she knew of the high school where we used to work before. So she's like, oh, yeah, you guys are the person that were here, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I totally know. He's like, he's going to be fine. And then the doctor comes behind me and says, you know what? It's like, that's the best hospital he can go to for any heart problems. Like, he's going to be fine. He's going to be taken care of. But in the midst of seeing so much commotion going on around him, it's something that you can take little comfort on. It's just, I need to let my kids know. I need my son, who lives in Chattanooga conveniently, to meet me there, because I don't want to go through this alone. I need to get there. How do I get there? Because I'm not familiar with, you know, the area. And just every thought that can go through your mind at that time. But trying to stay focused on, like, I'm just going to drive there, keep communicating. And then as I'm starting to drive off, then I call his sister and brother, and, you know, just trying to let a couple of different family members know. And I'm getting up the mountain, because I have to go over the mountain to get on the other side of town to Chattanooga. And it's finally kicking in. I'm driving by myself, and I left him in a hospital bed.